Hello humans, it's just Martine, and it's time for another episode of TBR Crime. TBR Crime is my bi-monthly TBR game. Detective Blake Pradera moves around a randomized board, gets prompts, solves crimes. It's a good time. If you want to check out any of the previous episodes, I'll link the playlist right here. But let's go ahead and get playing. We are here to set up the board for episode 11 of TBR Crime. First things first, we have to choose our partner for this case. Our partner is Jamie Soto. The advantage is that she's very organized, so we get to double up once this episode. 2 prompts, 1 book. Her disadvantage is that she does things by the book, so all our bonuses, those are our yellow cards, are only worth half of the cool points. Thank you, Jamie. With that being said, there's nothing about Jamie that changes how we set up the board, so we're going to go ahead and randomize it. All right, this is what our board is looking like today. A lot of blue, a lot of green. It is time for roll 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Off to a strong start, except that we get a setback immediately. Somebody's getting away, maybe from the scene of the crime. We notice someone, but we have to chase them. So I'm going to read an author's most recent release. I honestly had several options for this prompt. I'm just watching a piece of trash fly away. And then they all landed in my Libby around the same time, but the one that got there first and that got read for this prompt is Roles and Rivalry by Christy Boyce. I think I've read every book in this series for TBR Crime episode. I'm trying to figure out how many TBR Crime episodes I've done this year. Has this series made it into every single one? I don't know. If not, very close. I'm giving this one 3.5 stars, just like I've given the other 2 books. Just like the other 2 books in this series, this is a YA contemporary romance with kind of a central focus of Dungeons and Dragons, but this one also centers even more so on marching band, which was a delight. I personally was not in marching band. I was a choir kid, but the competitiveness of musicality was relatable. And a lot of the traditions of their marching band reminded me of the traditions of my high school choirs. So that was very fun for me. Our main character in this one is going into her senior year. She's the captain of the color guard. And then all of a sudden, first day of band camp, she realizes that one of the people she was very close to growing up has moved back to town. He left for a while. He moved back, and he's in the percussion section of band, which is bad news because the color guard and the percussion section have it out for one another. So they're suddenly rivals. And he also does not seem to be as happy to see her again as she is to see him. So she's like, I don't know what that's all about. I didn't understand some of Max's motivations in this one. That was the male character. I feel like that's been more clearly addressed in previous books. Nevertheless, I had a really good time with this one, and I feel like adding the marching band element was so fun. So 3.5 stars it is. On to the next roll. Roll 2. That is a 3. 1, 2, 3. We need to take a witness statement, which is fair because we just chased that person, so somebody else probably saw what was happening, and we need to read a book that was blurbed by someone familiar. I absolutely scoured my shelves for this one because when you're looking at books on, say, Libby, they don't always have the blurbs on the ebook cover that they're going to have in the physical cover, so I was like, my best shot is I'm going to try my shelves first, and I was pleasantly surprised to find this book, Eliza Starts a Rumor, and it was blurbed by Emily Henry. I think I've read every book that Emily Henry has published so far, so definitely someone familiar. And I'm giving this book 3.5 stars. In general, it was a really fun one. I liked our characters, I liked the vibe of the story, and it was a quick read. We're following several characters, but obviously Eliza is our titular character, and she runs the Hudson Valley Ladies Bulletin Board online, and she starts a rumor one day because she wants her site to get more traffic than it's been getting. There's this other competing bulletin board at the time, Valley Girls, that seems to be more popular, and she wants her bulletin board to be popular. And she's also stuck inside because she's experiencing some really extreme agoraphobia, and so she starts this rumor to drum up traffic on the webpage so that she has something to give her time to. But we're also following a lot of other characters in the same community, all of whom interact at some point with this specific bulletin board and this fake anonymous rumor post that Eliza made. We're following a single mother who just moved out to the suburbs. We're following a new mom who's having some troubles with her husband. We're following Eliza's best friend who is briefly moving back home after some difficulties out west. We're following Eliza and all she's going through, and we're also following Jackie, who's a single dad to a teenage girl. And they're all connected by this bulletin board. Things get really messy, and there are definitely some dark themes in this book. So even though it looks light and fun, I definitely recommend checking out content warnings if there's anything that you're always on the lookout for. I think for me, the community is what pushed this towards a 3.5 stars instead of lower to a 3-star. Generally for me, a 3.5 star is solid, and there was something that I really enjoyed about the book. I feel like the author really made use of the community in this. Each chapter is labeled with the main character whose perspective we're following in that chapter, but then we have chapters where we're following multiple ones of our characters as their stories interact and weave together. So, for example, this chapter is Amanda and Eliza, but there's also one chapter that has like 4 names at the start of it because they're all colliding all at once. And I think that's really fun when you have these disparate characters who are going through their own thing, but then also their stories are so deeply intertwined. So I loved that about this book. I'm getting my cool points and I'm moving on to the next roll. Roll 3. That's another 3. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, an action. We are going to stake out the location where we saw the person running away from and read a TBR veteran. I wanted to take this TBR veteran prompt very seriously, so I picked a book that I know factually has been on my shelves since high school. Not even my senior year. I'm pretty sure I got this my junior year. It's my copy of Walden by Henry David Thoreau, and it also has his essay Civil Disobedience in it. So I'm rating this all as one singular book, both Walden and Civil Disobedience, because that's the copy that I have. I got this very pretty classic copy from a bookstore on a school trip, which is why I know that I got it when I was in high school. And at the time, I immediately read the first 2 pages and then stopped and haven't read it since. And so I decided this was the book's moment to shine. And I'm going to give this book 3 stars. There were some moments of this book that I really, really enjoyed. There were some that I really didn't care about. If you're unfamiliar, Walden is a work of classic nonfiction by Thoreau about his time out at Walden Pond. He builds a house there and he lives there for several years, and his point is to go and experience life in a different way and just make sure that he's living intentionally. And so this book is a really, really slow read. However, if you can be in the right mindset to read it, that is very enjoyable. It forces you to go along with the slowness that he experienced out at Walden Pond. There was one chapter where I was just sitting there reading about ants fighting and watching ants fight, and I was like, I am mesmerized by this. But then there were so many other sections where I was like, I really don't care how thick the ice is on the pond in the winter. Also, I'm not sure I've read any Thoreau before this, but the man loves a comma. Too many commas were used, especially in the writing of Walden. I feel like the commas were not as much of a problem for me in Civil Disobedience, but in Walden, there were times where I was like, wait, what was the initial point of this sentence? And I would have to backtrack and be like, what are we talking about? Just so many commas. I also don't agree with some of the things that he was talking about. His views about the point of reading, for instance, those made me mad. But there was a slowness to this book that in the right moments really captured and consumed me in a very relaxing way. So I'll give it credit where credit is due. And it sure is a TBR veteran, so I'm super, super, super happy that now this book is off of my TBR and is going onto my shelves of read books. Roll 4. That's a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A clue. We found a weapon, so I'm going to read a less read genre. For this prompt, I'm going to take the opportunity to use the advantage I have, thanks to my partner in this specific case, Jamie Soto. I get to double up and use one book for 2 prompts, and this book fits on multiple fronts for less read genre because it is a nonfiction, which I don't read as often as fiction, and it is also a classic, which I don't read as often as more modern books. And so I'm gonna take that really hard work that I did to read Walden and Civil Disobedience and count it for this second prompt. it literally took me so much reading time and energy to make it through this book, so the fact that I get to double up on it feels very vindicating. Anyway, on to the next roll. Roll 5. That's a 2. 1, 2. Another setback. We have a fight with Jamie. Typical. So I'm going to read a book that is part of a saga. I consider a saga to be anything that has 4 or more books, although the internet is very divided on this. Every time I pull this prompt, I look it up again and I see arguments upon arguments upon arguments about what constitutes a saga. But I'm going with my own definition because this is my game. I wrote this prompt. I know what I meant. And I actually got myself to return to a series that I have not picked up in a hot minute, because I read Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey, and I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. I was really worried, since I haven't read from this series in so long, that I would have absolutely no idea what was happening, but I think these authors have such a talent of bringing me back every time and going, oh yeah, that's what's happening, without info dumping anything on me, which I think is critical if you're going to write a series of books. I feel like that has to be a skill that you prioritize in your storytelling, and I feel like this duo does that so well, because it's been over a year since I read book 4 in the series, and I read the first book all the way back in 2023. So this series has been on a low burn simmer in my brain this whole time, and I have forgotten everything about it. But I knew what was happening in this book, which is miraculous. In this series, we're following the crew of a specific spaceship. There's lots that happens. At this point in the series, all I feel like I can say is that we're still following the crew of this one ship. It's very much a found family story, and in this one, we separated a lot of them for most of the book, which I did not like. It was very stressful, and I do feel like this was a filler book pushing us into the next stage in the series, but I'm excited about that. I feel like it set us up for some really interesting conflict. There was plenty of conflict in this book, don't get me wrong, and there was lots of danger, and I feared for all of our main characters. But I do feel like a big part of this book was working on creating a bigger conflict that can propel us through the rest of the series. So I hope I don't take over a year to read the next book, because things are definitely going to go down. That being said, the epilogue didn't make any sense to me, so I'm going to need the next book to clarify all that. I know it's not good. Whenever you have an epilogue from a new point of view, it is ominous. And so I got that vibe that we are not supposed to be happy about this thing, that it is going to spell trouble for our main characters. But I'm a little unclear about what's happening, so we're going to have to figure that one out. This was not my absolute favorite in the series. Again, it felt like a bit of a filler, but I did genuinely have a great time reading this book, and I love these characters. Like, once I got back into the story, I was like, oh yeah, these guys. Love them. And what better book series to work on when the prompt is fight with a partner than a found family book where you're all in this tiny spaceship? I feel like it makes perfect sense. Next roll. Roll 6. A 6 for roll 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another clue. We identify a possible motive. I get to read a mood read. I'm very pleased about this. I went mood read because I've been chomping at the absolute bit to read the final score. Because during Wonderthon, I read The Game Changer by this same author, and there were these two characters, and I was like, is something going to happen between you? Is there another book? Is this a series? And then I looked it up, and Goodreads is like, it's not a series. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. And then I looked at the author's page, and it was like, there's this new book coming out, The Final Score. And I was like, that sure looks related to the cover of The Game Changer. So I click on it, I read the synopsis. I go, that's who I'm looking for. Those are the two characters. It's about the two characters. Goodreads does not have this marked as a series, which is wild to me because it is a series. This book takes place directly after the last book. We're following characters that had a prominent role in the first book. This is a series. We see our main characters from The Game Changer a lot in this book. This is a series. And I have to wonder if some of the more negative reviews on this are from people who did not read The Game Changer because it's not marked as a series and came in and was like, why should we care about these characters? When I came in already caring about these characters. Because I'm giving this book 4 stars. There are some things that weren't perfect about it, but overall I had a really good time with this. I read it in 3 days and I had a good time. Because this came out only a little while ago. It was not yet published when I found out, that it was going to exist. So during Wonderthon, found out it was going to exist, was like, it's publishing in late July. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I put a smart tag on it on Libby to be like, if any of my libraries gets this book, please tell me immediately. And I got the notification in the middle of class one day while my students were doing an iClicker question. And so I immediately went to get it. And there was already like an 8-week hold on it. So I put a hold on it immediately, got it pretty quickly because people will be like, oops, I didn't want the hold that fast. I do it too. Everybody does. And so I got it a couple weeks after I placed that hold, downloaded it immediately because I was like, yeah, I will be reading this now. In this one, our main male character is a hockey player, which you could have guessed, and our main female character is a graduate student going to school training to be a therapist. Both of them are the siblings of the main characters in, I can't say book one because it's not a series, The Game Changer. We have Ian's sister and we have Delilah's brother. And I can't say that this is enemies to lovers because there's no moment in which our main male character dislikes our main female character. She just finds him super annoying and egotistical, which is fair because he uses that as a coping mechanism to seem happy all the time. And so in this book, she's discovering that maybe all of her initial assumptions about him were wrong. The mental health representation, I feel two ways about it. On the one hand, I think some really good work was done with how these characters learned to communicate with one another. There's this idea that comes up that it is natural and normal to have knee-jerk reactions that are not exactly what we wanted to say or have happen, that we are not villains for having those knee-jerk reactions, and that we can work through it after that hard moment has passed. And I really liked that messaging. I think sometimes we have characters in romance books where they have a knee-jerk reaction, and then the way that it's handled afterwards is not as emotionally mature, or we don't ever discuss the fact that those reactions are normal, and so it just gets too out of proportion. But in this one, it was very much like those were two very normal reactions to upsetting moments, and then we figure out how to cope with it afterwards. So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the conversations about being authentic and real, and the fact that you don't have to be happy all the time for other people, the fact that you don't have to be caring for other people all the time. All of those messages were great. There were a couple of other things that were discussed that were not handled quite correctly. There was one term that was used at least 3 times that was not correct. I'm not sure that the author meant it this way, but she used the word manic a couple of times in a way that was not medically accurate, but in a scene that was about mental health, so it seemed like it was supposed to be medically accurate, but it wasn't. Anyway, so that grinded my gears a little bit. And then also was a little confusing because our main female character training to be a therapist, however, we only ever see her through her degree going to classes, which you definitely have, but we never get a hint that she's doing practicum of any kind, which is weird. Because to be a licensed mental health counselor, you're going to need to do actual time with patients under supervision. But aside from that, I had a really fun time with the book. There were some things that were really, really, really sweet about it. There were some things that made me laugh a lot. And I do love a grumpy sunshine where he's the sunshine and she's a little grumpy. It's just not done as often as the reverse, I feel like. So anyway, my mood has been read for. On to the next roll. Are we going to close the case with our final roll? Let's see. No. I jinxed us. We got a 1. We have yet another setback. Our captain disapproves of our decision. That's unfortunate. So we have to read a title that has an alliteration in it. I actually had such a perfect book with an alliteration in the title to read while I was home. I read Dog Days by Erica Waller, and I'm giving it 4 stars. It's perfect for a couple reasons. 1, it was on my home shelves. And 2, I got to read it while I was with Ernie. A book about dogs. And here you are. A dog. This book is very sad. It definitely made me cry, and we're following 3 main characters, each of whom has a dog associated with them. The dogs are not the sad part of this book. The humans are the sad part of this book. The dogs are the happy part of this book, because all of the humans that we're following are going through a lot. We're following this crotchety old man, George, whose wife has passed away quite suddenly, and he's really not used to doing things on his own, and he's really got a terrible mood about everything, like very, very cranky. We're following Dan, who's a counselor, but he has issues of his own that he's trying to work through. And then we're following Lizzie, who has taken her son and run away from her husband. So we're obviously dealing with a lot of deep and dark topics in this book, even though it has the lighter message about dogs being something that connect us and bring us joy and happiness and comfort. Each of our main characters has a dog who plays an important role in their journey in this book. George has Poppy, who his wife adopted shortly before she passed. Dan has his best friend, Fitz. And then Lizzie has the dog, Maud, who lives at the shelter that she escaped to. And this book is about our characters' connections with each other and the world and their lives and all the things that are happening around them. And they happen to all be connected in some way. We see different characters flit in and out of the other characters' perspectives as they cross paths throughout life. And the opening prelude and then the ending of the book all revolve around a time in a park when all of our main characters and all of the dogs are present. I think this author was so good at writing interesting characters, not even likable characters, because I'll say like George, I did not like. There was not a point in which I liked George. I felt bad for George, but there was never a point in which I was like, okay, I love him. And all of our characters were deeply imperfect and flawed and human and made some big mistakes, and we're all carrying through and working on a lot of personal things. I would definitely look up the content warnings if you're at all interested in this one, and the ending was definitely more bittersweet than happy. So if you're looking for a happy ending, don't look here, because there were some really tragic things that happened in this book. Again, I cried, and so the ending had some really sad bits too. But the title is an alliteration, and Ernie does approve of the subject matter. Isn't that right, Ernie? He has no comment at this time. This time, are we going to close the case? Please, please, anything over a 1? Yes, we got a 5, so case closed. That was not a bad one. And with another successful case closed, we're leaving episode 11 of TBR Crime behind us. We earned 15 cool points this round, which is not a record or anything, but is fine. And that brings our total for the year up to 61 cool points. Again, not setting any records over here, but just trying to get through the year. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what was your favorite prompt of the episode, and subscribe for more bookish and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!